Now, today's thought of the day, as Sejal ji has already set the agenda, that creating safe emotional spaces. You know, think about the last time you had a secret. Maybe you failed an exam, or you had feelings for someone, or you were struggling with something that felt too shameful to share. And now remember that one person you could tell anything to without fear. What made them different? Why could you be completely honest with them when you couldn't with others? Now, that person wasn't just a good friend, they were a creator of safe emotional space. And today, you're going to learn how you can become that person for others. And more importantly, how to create that safety for yourself. Because in a world full of judgment, advice givers, and I told you so moments, safe spaces are rarer than good Wi Fi in a moving train. So let me tell you about Arjun, a 19-year-old who wanted to switch from engineering to design. Now, you know how difficult it is. For months, he carried this decision like a heavy secret because every family gathering ended with relatives asking about his bright engineering future. The weight of keeping this inside was affecting his studies, his sleep, and his relationships. And finally, he told his younger sister. But instead of the judgment he expected, she said, "That makes sense. I've seen your sketches. You're really talented." And in that moment, Arjun felt something he hadn't experienced in months: relief. Not because his problem was solved, but because he could be finally honest without fear. And this is what psychological safety does. It gives you permission to be human, to have doubts, fears, dreams that don't fit the mold, feelings that seem irrational. In Indian families, we're often taught to have our lives figured out by 18, to be strong all the time, to not burden others with our problems. But here's the thing: when people can't be vulnerable, they can't really connect. Think about your closest relationships. Are they the ones where you both pretend everything is perfect? Or are they the ones where you can say, "I messed up," and still feel loved? Psychological safety isn't about everyone agreeing with you, it's about knowing that your humanity won't be used against you. You know, when people feel emotionally safe, something magical happens. They stop performing and start being real. They share their actual thoughts instead of what they think you want to hear. And they ask for help before they're drowning instead of after. They take healthy risks because they know failure won't cost them love or respect. So, creating emotional safe spaces, this sounds complicated, but it often comes down to small intentional choices. So, let me share some practical strategies. The one, sacred pause. When someone shares something difficult with you, resist the urge to immediately fix, judge, or relate it back to your own experience. Instead, pause and ask, "How are you feeling about this?" Or "What do you need right now?" Someone to listen or someone to help solve this. Now, this simple pause transforms you from a reactor into a safe space creator. Then the Me Too moment. When someone admits a struggle, instead of saying, "You shouldn't feel that way," try sharing something vulnerable about yourself. I struggled with something similar, or I felt that way too. Can be incredibly healing. But be careful. Share to connect, not to compete or steal focus. Then the curiosity over judgment approach. When your teenager comes home with pink hair, your first instinct might be, what will people think? But, of, what, but what if you asked, what inspired this choice? So curiosity opens doors, judgment slams them shut. I know a mother who transformed her relationship with a college age daughter by changing one phrase. Instead of, why didn't you tell me earlier? It sounds more like criticism. She started saying, I'm glad you're telling me now. Same information received, completely different emotional experience for her daughter. Trust and empathy. Yes, they are like the foundation and walls of your safe emotional space. Without both, the structure collapses. But here's what's interesting about trust in Indian relationships. We often confuse trust with agreement. We think if my family trusts me, they'll support all my decisions. But the real trust is deeper. It's even if family doesn't agree with my decision, they'll still love and respect me as a person. So let me share a beautiful example. Priya wanted to take a gap year to figure out her interests before college. Now, her parents were initially horrified. What will we tell relatives? But her father made a choice. He said, I don't understand this decision and I'm worried about it, but I trust that you're not making it lightly. Help me understand your thinking. Notice what he did? He separated his fears from his trust in her character. He created space for disagreement without withdrawing love. And that's emotional safety in action. The magic happens when trust and empathy combine. People feel seen and accepted. In that combination, healing happens, growth happens, and real intimacy becomes possible. Now imagine yourself, coming home from the worst day of your life. You're emotionally cold, drained, maybe even a little broken. What you need isn't someone to analyze what went wrong or immediately cheer you up. What you need is the emotional equivalent of a warm blanket on a cold night. A safe emotional space works exactly like that warm blanket. It doesn't fix your problems or change your circumstance, but yes, it wraps you in comfort so you can rest, process, and heal. It creates the conditions where your own strength can return naturally. When someone offers you true emotional safety, they're not trying to transform you or solve you. They're simply saying you can be exactly who you are right now, with all your mess and confusion and pain, and you're still worthy of love and respect. So, just like a blanket doesn't judge you for being cold, a safe emotional space doesn't judge you for being human. It simply provides warmth, comfort, and protection while you gather the strength to face whatever comes next. So, here's your mission, and it's going to change at least one relationship in your life this week. Think of someone in your circle who might be carrying something heavy. A friend who's been quieter lately, a family member who's going through changes, or maybe even someone who usually tries to be strong for everyone else. Reach out to them this week, but don't ask what's wrong or are you okay? Instead, try something like this. I've been thinking about you. If you ever need someone to listen without giving advice or judgment, I'm here. This is a safe space. You can share whatever you want without fear. And then, and this is crucial, actually create that safety when they respond. Don't interrupt. Don't immediately relate it to your own experience. Don't jump to solutions. Just listen. Reflect back what you hear. And that sounds really challenging. Or, I can see why you'd feel that way. Notice what happens to the conversation. Notice how their body language changes. Notice how your relationship shifts when someone feels truly safe to be themselves with you. But here's the deeper challenge: start by creating that safe space for your own self. Pay attention to your inner dialogue this week. So, when you make a mistake or face a challenge, practice talking to yourself with the same compassion you would show a friend. Because in a hyper connected world, we have hundreds of contacts in our phones. But how many people do you feel truly safe being vulnerable with? How many people in your life feel safe being vulnerable with you? The most precious gift you can offer someone isn't advice, solutions, or even agreement. Is the gift of being seen, heard, and accepted in their full humanity. Messy emotions, imperfect decisions, and all. Creating safe emotional space isn't about being a therapist or having all the answers. It's about being courageously human with other humans. It's about choosing curiosity over judgment, listening over talking, and presence over performance. So remember, you don't need special training to create emotional safety. You just need the willingness to see others as worthy of love and respect, exactly as they are. You need the courage to be vulnerable yourself and the wisdom to hold space for others' vulnerability. So start today. Start with one person, start with one conversation, start with the revolutionary act of creating a space where someone can breathe freely, speak honestly, and be loved completely. The world needs more safe spaces, and your relationships need more emotional safety. And you deserve to be both, give and receive the comfort of that warm blanket on life's coldest nights. So, who will you reach out to this week? Decide. Who will you wrap in the warmth of genuine acceptance and care? The answer to that question might just transform both of your lives. So, with that thought, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you.